Hey, HMS 7th grade, Mr. Nicholson here. Today in class, Mr. Flato came in, he had a message for you guys, and it was really awesome. All 5 periods just crushed it. So this is for the DLI kids and then those who need a refresher. So Mr. Flato's going to take it over. He's got a really awesome message that he'd like to share with you guys.
Yeah, so it's been awesome. Last week, Ms. Cooper and I getting in with the eighth graders, and today kicking off the seventh grade week of coming in and mostly just remembering names, learning names, getting to know you kids better, having some engagement, having the students know who I am, me knowing who they are, and then also the second part of it was just kind of processing and going through like the craziness that's been the last 6 months. The elephant in the room, I like to call it, which is COVID, and it's been about 6 months almost to the day where we in Montana were really affected by it. And so, whenever you're going through something crazy in life, I think it helps to stop, pause, process, talk, share experiences, share ideas, so much, so long, and so forth with that. And so, we kind of kicked it off. Talking about COVID, but we talked about the positives. And what were some of the positives that you consistently heard from every period?
There's a lot of getting outside, using their time outside, going biking. A couple kids recognize that they got to sleep in a little bit, not to the point where that their sleep cycle is getting messed up, but more sleep. Some of them were
Eating healthier, cooking more at home, skipping the fast food, which is something I did. Yeah, that was great. Finding time outdoors, finding time with family. A lot of people
Yep.
spent more time with family, although I think it's important to recognize that not every kid in our building spending more time with family is a good thing. So we talked about how that kind of cut both ways.
Yeah, and I like earlier you mentioned that school's kind of a safe place for some kids, and for that who it is, that got taken away from them. So having that empathy for them, if we do have that good time with our family, like you said, not everybody does.
Pets. A lot of people got to spend more time with their pets. A lot of time, a lot of people got new pets that they got to spend time with, and then a lot of people just liked having things slow down and have a less busy schedule. I heard that a lot in one form or the other, getting their schoolwork done and then having more free time. We also talked about how, in 10 years of being a school counselor, I've come to recognize that with most things in life, it's things hit right in the middle. And too much time with family wasn't necessarily good. Not enough time with family wasn't good, but that hitting that middle spot where, you're getting to spend more time. Some kids also struggled with, as we get into the things that didn't go so well, losing their sleep patterns and sleeping way too long and being up late at night. I know I would get messages. I wouldn't get a whole lot in the morning, but my messages from kids in the spring would start I don't know, noon, 1, 2, and then it would go kind of throughout the night. And that was a pretty good indicator to me that it was good they were getting more sleep, but their sleeping patterns got thrown off. And that was a huge component of the health triangle that we talked about today. So I might as well come pre-teach the health triangle. We tried to tie everything in with the health triangle, which obviously, if you're not sleeping right, that's gonna affect your physical well-being. Another one that was really interested is, it was a pretty 50-50 split. Kids that got more physical exercise than they would have if they weren't in a pandemic, and then the other half that didn't get as much. And I think it was pretty clear that the kids that got more physical exercise, it kind of helped them get through the pandemic, where kids that didn't.
They were the ones that seemed almost, they had more to say about the negatives about COVID, the things that were really bugging them, the ones that didn't get that exercise. And that shows because everything in the health triangle is linked. That's what we're learning.
The food. We talked a lot about how some kids, same thing, kind of a split. Some kids use that time to spend more time cooking and preparing healthier meals, while other kids, they let their eating habits kind of slip a little bit. And we know when we're not eating as good of foods, when we're eating more sweets, more fats, more things that aren't good for us, that tends to play a negative role on our mental health.
Another one I heard too that stuck out a lot to me that was pretty, almost in every class, was just the overall lack of motivation for everyone.
Yeah, that was one thing that I really heard a ton of in the spring was I'm just not motivated. I'm struggling with I'm struggling with my motivation, and maybe we could kind of finish with that because I think all these other things tied in a lot to why kids were struggling with their motivation.
Yeah.
Another huge part that kids almost unanimously struggled with was the lack of social in-person interactions.
Right. Yes. Yeah. A lot of kids said that that's the one thing I missed the most about school is just they don't get to see their friends, and that's what all middle school's about.
Yeah.
Getting that social interaction.
Yeah, and it wasn't a surprise to me because I know with my studies being a counselor that we are social beings. Some of us are more introverted, some of us are more extroverted, but everybody needs that social interaction. And when you take that social interaction away, to be safe from the physical harm and the contagiousness of COVID-19, that really wreaked havoc on people's mental health. But we did hear some awesome solutions and awesome ideas that people had to be able to get their social fix with using technology. We say limit your time on these stupid things, but during COVID, technology really became a friend to us and a tool that we could safely interact, much like we're doing right now.
A couple kids said too that everyone now, after last year and starting this year, everyone's kind of a Teams expert now, hopefully. A couple kids made group meetings with their friends. It just allowed everyone to see everybody from a safe distance through their technology that they were learning how to use.
Or they were able to get together outside and space apart and still have those interactions. We were able to talk about as well. Some people's friends or parents took it very seriously, which is their right, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people didn't take it as serious, but they still made certain changes in their life to safeguard, which is appropriate as well. Everybody kind of had their own way in dealing with it, which to be honest, didn't really surprise me at all because that was an experience that I shared with some of my friends who I didn't get to see. Some of my friends who we would see, but we would space out and we would be protecting one another. And so, really interesting discussion was had around the social piece. Probably the biggest thing that I came away with that's on my mind is that structure piece and how we have always known that kids and human beings need structure, they need predictability, they need a schedule. They may not need it, and it might not be everybody, but we mostly all thrive when we have that. And how you take that away from kids, I think we as adults underestimated kids' inability to go and create their own structure. And that came across in sleeping in, that came across in lack of motivation to get their schoolwork done. That came across in poor eating habits. That came across in not getting that physical exercise. And when you start adding those things together, it just becomes a huge snowball of not being motivated. And so one of the things we also talked about, which I think will be critical for you DLI kids, is having the discipline in life to create your own structure. Yeah, we can sleep in a little bit more. I think that that's good for kids your age. To sleep in a little bit more, but let's try to set those alarm clocks for 7:30, 8:30, maybe 9 o'clock, and get up and build a routine. For some people, it was chunking. Some kid talked about how he likes to do all of his schoolwork and then maybe take a day off, where other kids like to do one class at a time, go do something fun. One class at a time, go walk the dog. One class at a time, go eat lunch. One class at a time, go get some exercise. One class at a time, go get some Netflix. I think the key is building a system that works for you.
Yeah, and everyone's gonna be different. Like the kid who said he does it all in one day, takes a day off, then does it all again in one day. That's not gonna work for everybody. You gotta find what it is that makes you click.
The final piece of the health triangle, mental, emotional, I think the physical and the social, they're all so intertwined together that the crazy thing to me was when we said who in the last 6 months, mental, emotional, haven't felt the same, and virtually every hand went up. And I think that was important because there was a time where I was feeling pretty crummy and I was feeling pretty down. And it took me having an honest conversation and opening up, having somebody to communicate with. I think that's important. Having somebody you can talk to. But I talked to some friends, and to hear that they were struggling as well, it was a really weird feeling because I don't like to hear that my people or my friends are struggling. But at the same time, it made me feel like, oh, okay, it's not just me. It's this thing is the reason I'm feeling different. This thing's the reason I'm feeling down. This thing's the reason I'm feeling anxious or paranoid or disconnected or just not the same. And so I think for other kids to look around the room and be like, wow, everybody was struggling at some point or is, I think maybe lent itself a little bit of okay, I can take a deep breath, and we're going to get through this together as a human beings.
Yeah, that realization of that they're not the only ones that were struggling in school last year.
Anything else that we missed that were, pretty consistent along the first 5 periods? Some conversations went a little different, but I think we hit pretty much all of the highlights. Some things I think Mr. Nicholson, myself would ask from you guys is, what were the silver linings from the pandemic? I know for me, it was like sleeping a little bit more, cooking a little bit more time spent with my dog, life just slowing down, slower pace. That was nice. What were some good things that came out of it? And then what were the things that were really hard for you? What were things you were able to overcome? What are you still struggling with? And then I know you may have some more questions that you want them to process and think about and answer.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll be putting a document on this attached with this video, you guys, that you can fill out those questions and get it back to us and get some points for that for an assignment this week. You also had a counselor page too.
Counselor page, thank you for reminding me of that. All of you should have been added to 7th grade counseling page. Final thought kind of today is, yeah, we're in the middle of craziness, and you can do one of two things. You can either roll up in a ball and hide and just get kicked in the head by it. That's a metaphor, but kind of get beat up by it, or you can lean into it a little bit. Another metaphor, and that doesn't mean you have to like it. That doesn't mean you have to accept it. That doesn't mean you have to enjoy it, but lean into it a little bit and use this as a time to grow in your own perseverance and to grow in your own grit. And I never tell kids to do anything that I don't hold true to myself. And so one of the things I've done is Ms. Gluckert and I really dug down deep and all right, how are we going to evolve? I think evolve is like the main word, with when tough times come and you have to persevere through it, that's when evolution and growth happens with people. And that was what we did. So we came up with the counseling pages. I put videos out there. I'm going to put resources out there. I had to kind of ask the chat feature because kids were getting off topic and using it as a general communication thing. But I'm going to I'm going to re-up and give the 7th graders another chance next week. But I encourage you to go check that out maybe once a week or time to time. I'm going to do my best to evolve as a counselor and make this a great year, put resources out there. And so I hope you guys are able to go find that and go do that. So last but not least, stop in my chat, say hi sometime. Tell me how your life's going. I would love to hear from you. Love to continue to build that relationship this year with you so that we can hopefully rock and roll in 8th grade. And appreciate you guys tuning in.
Yeah, keep working hard, 7th grade. Let me know if you need anything.